Welcome to a production of the Brockton Neighborhood Association titled Brockton City Deficits and What Internal Controls Should Exist to Prevent Future Deficits. My name is Jamal Brathwaite, and the following presentation was prepared by myself in my capacity as a director of the Brockton Neighborhood Association and as host of the Brockton Residents Forum. The opinions expressed in this presentation are my own, as an outcome of reviewing publicly available information. My background includes that I have 20 years of experience working as an accountant, compliance officer, and internal auditor for large banks, insurance companies, and investment management firms. This includes 10 years in London and 10 years in Boston, and for the past 6 years I've been an internal controls auditor over investment management process areas. On this slide include a list of degrees that I've earned, which includes a master's in accounting and a master's in risk management. The mission of the Brockton Neighborhood Association is to maintain and enhance the quality of life within Brockton neighborhoods through education, advocacy, and civic engagement. On March 8, 2024, Brockton Public Schools and the City of Brockton shared findings of an independent audit that had been completed by Open Architects. After reviewing the report, Acting Superintendent Dr. James Cobb was quoted as saying, "What this report makes clear is that while there are numerous significant and growing costs associated with providing students with a holistic education, we have not done a good enough job to plan for and mitigate those costs, nor have we taken care to adhere to budgeting best practices." Page 1 of the Open Architects final report of their review of Brockton Public Schools includes a scope of work, which was to conduct a review over the financial health and fiscal operations of Brockton Public Schools, developing a report of the review and recommendations, along with providing technical assistance to Brockton Public Schools. Their key findings was identifying 3 years of fiscal year deficits. That includes fiscal year 2023 deficit greater than $18 million, a fiscal year 2024 deficit of approximately $25 million, and a fiscal year 2025 deficit, which it's close to $20 million, but all these numbers seem to always continuously change when observing Brockton Public School committee meetings where they talk about these numbers and how they change. So other observations from this report includes the very last paragraph of what's presented on this slide is they state that their analysis highlights numerous fiscal challenges faced by Brockton Public Schools, ranging from the budget mismanagement and inadequate fiscal controls to complex contract and benefits administration, which contributed to the ongoing budget deficits and fiscal pressures. So the budget deficit is an ongoing issue as of the date of this recording, and there's no end in sight. The second portion of the slide observes that the solution of how they were able to close the fiscal year 2023 deficit by borrowing money against the city itself. There's an account called the Chapter 324 Stabilization Account, and they withdraw $7.9 million there, which needs to be replenished. On page 1 of the most recently available external audit report provided by Clifton Larson over the City of Brockton's finances for year-end dated June 30, 2022. Their opinion states that the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. The respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and aggregate remaining fund information of the city as of June 30th, 2022, and the respective changes in the financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. On page 1 of the most recently available external audit report provided by Clifton Larson over the City of Brockton's finances for year-end dated June 30th, 2022. Their opinion states that the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. With respect to financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and aggregate remaining fund information of the city as of June 30th, 2022, and with respect to changes in the financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. On this slide are excerpts from the external audit report provided by Clifton Larson Allen LLP over the City of Brockton's finances as at a period ending June 30, 2022. This report was published or signed off by them dated March 15th, 2024. When you observe this audit report, it's important that we note that the auditor's responsibilities are stated as their objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes their opinion. Additional section here highlighted is that, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal control. Accordingly, no such opinion is expressed. So there's a limitation to the opinion of this external audit firm. They're not expressing an opinion about the effectiveness of the city's internal controls. Additional sections of just reiterating that point in the summary of their signing off on the external audit report, the very last paragraph states, and not to provide an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal control over financial reporting or on compliance. And the significance of highlighting this is because they're reiterating it. They're making it very clear in their audit report. They're not providing an opinion on the effectiveness of the city's internal controls over financial reporting. They also highlight management's responsibility, where they say management, which would include the CFO function and the mayor himself. The management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States, and for the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. So what we observe from reviewing the external audit report is that it's actually management's responsibility to design, implement, and maintain an internal controls relevant to the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements. So, but however, the external auditors, I just want to highlight, they are not providing an opinion about the effectiveness of the internal controls. So who is? What are internal controls? Well, internal controls, according to Investopedia, are accounting and auditing processes used in a company's finance department that ensure the integrity of financial reporting and regulatory compliance. Internal controls help companies to comply with laws and regulations and prevent fraud. They also help improve operational efficiency by ensuring that budgets are adhered to, policies are followed, capital shortages are identified, and accurate reports are generated for leadership. Here's my own definition of what internal controls are. Internal controls are a process followed by an organization's board, management, and staff designed to provide reasonable assurance to achieve objectives in the following categories: effectiveness and efficiency of operations, reliability of reporting, and compliance with applicable laws and regulations. And in this scenario, the organization's board is the city council, and management would be the mayor and all the department heads that report to the mayor. And staff, of course, are all the support staff that assist department heads in delivering service goals and objectives. Generally, there are two control types: preventative controls and detective controls. Preventative controls are designed to discourage errors or prevent irregularities from occurring. They are proactive controls that help prevent a loss. Examples include separation of duties, proper authorization, adequate documentation, policies, procedures, training, checklists, and IT application controls such as login access. These are all examples of preventative controls. Whereas detective controls are designed to find errors or irregularities after they have occurred. Examples are when someone conducts a review, or there's a reconciliation, such as a bank reconciliation, or physical inventory count, or audits themselves. These are all detective controls. This City Council discussion highlights the need for more effective internal controls.
I mean, the numbers are just so much larger. So I understand what you're saying. That's why it's so much harder to get to wrap yourself around this thing and to really understand the budgetary numbers that are over there. And it's going to take a really sophisticated plan to come up with, to try to really monitor the inflows and outflows and the reconciliation, and try to get it down on a monthly basis, because we can't have this happen again. I mean, it's embarrassing that the city of Brockton is going through this again. This is not what Brockton wants to be known for. So again, I just implore you with getting a hold of this thing sooner rather than later, because the citizens have an expectation that we're managing their money, and they deserve that expectation.
An effective plan to prevent future city deficits would include the city documenting issues that have been identified from reviewing the city financial accounts, by receiving feedback from open architects, as well as any other external auditors that have conducted reviews over the city finances and have made observations. Here on this slide, we've got a list of issues and observations that we have titled as risk events. In the second column, we have what impact that risk is having on the city. And then the third column, we have a control recommendation to prevent that risk from occurring. And we title this an issues and control deficiency log. The city of Brockton does not have an issues and control deficiency log. The Brockton Neighborhood Association took the initiative to compose one in absence of the existence of one, and so that we can have a better understanding of what was the root cause of the citywide deficits. Issue one that was a contributing root cause to the financial deficits was the existence of municipal override access and use by unauthorized staff.
Internal controls, proper segregation of duties, and communication, and basically span and control just wasn't watched at Brockton Public Schools. And the amount of munis override capacity and munis capacity on the school side was problematic. I know Troy and his team have reined a lot of it, not all of it, in. And that's just not usually the way it goes. I mean, Brockton Public Schools is a department within the city, and that, I understand the school committee's there to set policy and the superintendent and all that stuff, but the city still owns a portion of the chart of accounts and making sure that munis is shut down appropriately.
Issue 2, lack of a monthly reconciliation control to accurately account for school grant income and expenses.
I mean, for instance, if there's grant money coming in that can pay certain positions over there, then that frees up money that we've allocated for, a typical teacher or what have you. And if there's a grant that comes in that can cover certain things, that money is freed up. The money comes in, there'll be a shift with regard to the sourcing of that money. But see, that's where the That's where the real accountability needs to be had. Those changes of reconciliation have to be implemented, because that's really what it's all about, making sure that the monthly reconciliation reflects the income that's coming in, and the income coming in needs to be sourced, meaning that every source that's coming into that school department needs to be recognized, so that you at the end of the month, you're saying, okay, well, you know, this is the original budget, but it's been altered in certain respects this month. Well, why? Because money's come in for this grant, or money's come in for what have you. So that's what I'm talking about. That's the complication. That's sort of the octopus, all the different little sources of money coming in, and it changes the ultimate budget that we've allocated. So that's a constant reality, so to speak, and that's where we need the sophistication of you and your department and of the...
Issue 8. Invoices are not received within 1 year of services being rendered due to lack of an approved vendor invoice timeliness policy. This disclosure was made clear at a school committee meeting on February 6, 2024.
They didn't submit their bills.
Right,
So are we responsible to pay these? It
right.
shouldn't take you a little more than 2 years to submit a bill, especially when you know we have a budget we have to pay out,
Right,
and we can't just keep carrying things over. So
right.
are we legally responsible to have to, where does it say it in their contract? That we're legally responsible 2 years later to pay a bill?
Right, well,
I thought they had a year. I thought businesses, I don't know how it is with municipalities, but I thought it was 1 year. I mean, it's 2 years.
if you have a written contract and it's stated in the contract, then you have to follow the contract, but there was no written contract for these invoices. So they could come 10 years later and ask for payment. It's up to you to decide if you want to pay them.
Issue 6. Lack of a school procurement process when hiring vendors.
That's sort of a piggyback onto what I was saying before in the council meeting with things like the procurement laws. We can't do it alone. I can put together this memo and say, this is what you're supposed to be doing. But me and my 8 staff members don't have the capacity to go into each department every single time and sort of tell them what to do. That's been really the hard part, is getting everyone out of this mindset of anything having to do with money, you know, that's their problem. That's their job. No, it's not. It's not a modern way of thinking. It's not progressive, and it doesn't serve 2024. You're running a business at the end of the day underneath the services you're providing, and that, if anything, the way I see it, it safeguards your service, and it solidifies it, and it keeps it solid. So situations, catastrophic situations, occur. I hope that sort of explains what you were asking, Councilor Farwell. We need support from all city departments in understanding that and having systems built internally on their end that will support us, because we're already handling, again, these monster systems in my little office that almost make impossible to handle if everything is burning down around us.
Issue 14. City procurement of leased properties in absence of a documented lease agreement. The city has received an eviction notice for non-payment of rent. This was disclosed in a school committee meeting on May 7th of 2024.
Easy for these landlords to fill the buildings, especially one that size. Can we approach them and just try to renegotiate a lower lease?
So I'll say again, we do not have a lease. And the solicitor's office, Solicitor Bridges is working with all these lease people, and some of them are getting paid, some of them not. If you look at I gave you a copy of the leases and where the status of them are. We haven't paid the person for our warehouse on Foster Street yet. And it should show up money, but they haven't gotten paid. And solicitors saying legally we can't pay some of these people because we do not have a lease and they were procured properly. So we can't go back and negotiate something that that doesn't exist.
But I mean, like moving forward, a new
Well,
lease.
go ahead.
like negotiate a new lease moving forward?
Moving forward, the way to negotiate a lease is to put out another RFP and then take the bids and solicit the bids and then go for whoever the lowest bidder is. So that's, I would not go and negotiate directly because that would be a violation of the procurement laws.
So if we were to follow that route, if that was the committee's will, I can see landlords in wanting to, work with companies or individuals to hold on to a tenant rather than have a vacant property, especially given what's going on with, real estate in our market and where we are right now. So, I mean, would it hurt us to put it out there for an RFP and see? Again, everyone that's watching knows where we are financially right now. And you would think, we've been long-term tenants with a lot of people. We've done great business over the years. You would think somebody would just say, you know what, let's cut Brockton a break and work with them, rather than have an empty building.
Well, nobody's ringing my phone to say, hey, I want to give you less money for my property. And with the Westgate property, it's not an option. We've received a notice to vacate that building. So he's not negotiating at all.
No, that's fine.
Key takeaways regarding observation and issues are that for each of these issues, we should understand the risk event taking place, what impact it's having on the city, and what is the recommendation? What's the control recommendation to prevent that risk from occurring? In this scenario regarding the munis override access, the risk issue was that authorization that is statutorily limited to the city internal auditor was accessible by many employees. The impact is that it resulted in overspending more than the authorized amount approved by the City Council and breach of compliance with the Acts of 1990, Chapter 324. The control recommendation to prevent a reoccurrence of this risk is that on an annual basis there should be a review over who has access to the munis system and what is their authorization level. This review should be conducted by the system administrator of Munis on an annual basis, and review over the existence of this this system access review should be approved by the head of IT. Munis override access should not exist for any employee other than the city internal auditor, and the city council should be able to obtain evidence on an annual basis that a system access review was completed for Munis, because historically it appears this has not happened previously and it should be taking place moving forward. Regarding these other issues, we'll also observe that there's a column for risk level that indicates the likelihood that this risk could reoccur. All these risks are identified as high. The risk management goal of the city should be to try and mitigate each of these risks to become a medium probability of occurrence or low probability occurrence. Other issues identified in the slide includes the lack of a monthly expense review. The Schedule 19 methodology was never memorialized. The grant administration and accounting knowledge gaps and staffing needs exist. And the lack of communication of the approved budget between City Council and School Committee that happened for the fiscal year 2024 budget. Common themes are highlighted here regarding access and system credentials, inconsistent or missing signatory approval process, unexplained spending related to Schedule 19, and risk of leaving money on the table. The significance is that these issues should be documented by the city internal auditor and understood by the city council and the mayor, so that when they prepare the budget for fiscal year 2025, they are allocating funds to departments to be able to remediate these issues, to prevent them from reoccurring, so that we can prevent a future city deficit. On this slide, the list of observations and issues continues, which includes the risks of the lack of a school procurement process when hiring vendors, lack of a purchase order system, lack of approved vendor invoice timeliness, policy requirements, lack of evidence or review by the City Council of their statutory duty to review internal audit reports, lack of evidence of review by City Council of their fiduciary responsibility to review external audit reports. Common themes here were questionable in vendor selection process, risk of unauthorized vendor expenses, uncertainties of outstanding invoices and vendor management, limited review and exposure to internal audit reports, and limited review and exposure to external audit reports. The list of observations and issues that should be documented as control deficiencies continues. The next risk is the risk of vacant positions of the chief internal audit role, school CFO role, and school deputy CFO role that exists and are vacant and are not advertised by the city to recruit new talent to fill those positions. Second next risk is the school chart of accounts needs to adhere to statewide standards to be understandable to non-city employees. On April 9th, 2024, during a school committee meeting, there was a disclosure that budget items were miscoded. And this is acknowledged by TJ Plant, or identified by TJ Plant from Open Architects over his review over the school organization of accounts. 13, risk 13 here is all available funds should be reported to the City Council prior to the budget approval. The reason why this is on this issues log is because when the City Council reviews the mayor's budget proposal in June of each year, it does not include all available funds to the mayor, such as the existence of ARPA funds were never reported with the city budget, so the City Council cannot take into consideration all available funds when considering the budget approval for the next fiscal years. And this resulted in a misunderstanding by the City Council, school committee, and all parties regarding what monies were available, and so that it could be allocated appropriately. The risk 14 is the procurement of leased properties. Some buildings have no lease. City has received eviction notice. And risk number 15 is a risk of Chapter 70 funds not being 100% allocated to public education expenditures. Key themes with these risks are that vacant roles increase risk of critical tasks not being completed, not conforming to accounting standards and practices, inconsistent reporting and communication between boards, and lack of lease agreements when renting physical spaces. On this slide, we have the impact of those risks listed here. We also have the risk level, all is high, so it's a high likelihood that these risks will reoccur in fiscal year 2025 in absence of remediation of them, of the issue. And we also have the control recommendation of what controls should exist to prevent the risk from occurring. Who is providing financial assurance that controls exist and are operating effectively over the City of Brockton's finances? Not the external auditors, not the city internal audit department, not the mayor, not the City Council. With a spending budget of over $500 million a year, no one person or group is conducting internal control testing to provide financial assurance, nor documenting the control deficiencies that require remediation to prevent future deficits and risk to financial activities and reporting. Therefore, to prevent future deficits in fiscal mismanagement over the City of Brockton, the following are recommendations for the Mayor, City Council, and City Internal Auditor's Office. The City Internal Auditor should implement a financial assurance program to test that internal controls over financial reporting are designed and operating effectively citywide. Secondly, this office should document all control deficiencies and track for remediation of issues. Thirdly, provide training to departments on requirements to implement controls over financial reporting. Coach staff on how to perform a risk and control self-assessment. Fourthly, require an internal audit representative attend all city financial committee and school finance meetings to monitor the process and outcomes. And fifthly, provide an annual opinion on the effectiveness of internal controls over financial reporting. The Brockton City Council should consider appointing a new external auditor. The current one's been there for over 5 years, and it's not clear what value in insight or advice they have provided from their annual review over the City of Brockton's financial reporting. The mayor should set the tone at the top to promote a risk management culture. The mayor can do this by requesting that all city employees who perform an activity that provides data for financial reporting to document a risk and control self-assessment for the role to identify key risks and internal controls performed to prevent and detect risks. Thank you for listening to this presentation. All are welcome to join the discussion by joining the Brockton Residents Forum, which meets every Sunday from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Zoom. Here are the meeting login details. The Brockton Residents Forum is an opportunity for residents to discuss City Council meeting agendas and minutes and to reconcile them with resident priorities and to identify areas for further civic engagement and advocacy to improve the quality of life here in the City of Brockton. Thank you once again for listening, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.